Hi everyone, welcome to Mydbops MyWebinar 36. My name is Shiny and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we dive into today's topic, let me give you a quick overview of who we are. Mydbops is a leading database management and consultancy provider founded in 2016. Over these years, we have had the pleasure of assisting over 800 happy customers. Our services include comprehensive consulting and managed services tailored to meet your database needs. We are very excited to have you join us for this informative webinar on what is new in MySQL 8.4. Today, we will highlight some key new features of MySQL 8.4, including in-place upgrades and downgrades, clone plugin, group replication compatibility, automatic histogram updates, new GTID tags, and so on. As we go through the session, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box as they come to mind, and we will address them right away. Now, let me introduce our speaker, Vinoth Kanna, the founding partner of Mydbops. He has been working with databases for over 12 years, making complex database management easier for companies of all sizes. He is renowned for his skills in performance tuning, ensuring databases run faster and smoother. Additionally, Vinoth is an expert in AWS ODS, helping businesses manage their cloud databases efficiently. He is also a regular speaker at open source events where he shares his extensive knowledge with others in the tech community. So definitely we are in for an insightful session today. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Vinoth Kanna.
Thanks, Shani, for a brief introduction. Greetings, everyone. I am Vinoth Kanna, co-founder of Mydbops. Today, we are going to discuss on topic what's new in MySQL 8.4 LTS. LTS stands for long-term support. We are going to cover the most interesting features in 8.4 LTS. As Shiny has covered about the introduction, I'm just skipping the slide. And here is what we do at Mydbops. We provide consulting services and managed services on top open source database technologies like MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, TIDB, and Cassandra. On consulting services, we undertake targeted engagements like performance audits, security audits, migrations. And in managed services, we provide round-the-clock support on database operations, performance, ensuring 99.999% availability for your database servers. With a quick glance of agenda for today's presentation, we'll slightly touch upon introduction of MySQL 8.4 and its new versioning model. And we'll spend rest of our time in discovering the features of MySQL 8.4 and the current state of cloud support. And we conclude with key takeaways. MySQL 8.4 LTS. This is the first release of MySQL 8.4 LTS series after the introduction of new versioning model by MySQL. It was become first generally available on April 2024. It is going to stay for a long time, which is 8 years support in this today's industry period is like a huge win for stability, to have stability in any database product. And this LTS release is going to be applicable for all the products in MySQL ecosystem, which includes MySQL Server, implies MongoDB cluster, group replication, replica sets, MySQL shell, MySQL router, Kubernetes operator, and NDB cluster. There's a quick glance on new versioning model of MySQL. Now, the releases are classified into two categories. One is the innovation releases. In the innovation releases, new releases are supposed to happen quarterly basis, and new releases will start from a major version. Say, for example, 9.2, and the minor version is automatically incremented on every release. There won't be any patch version or bug fix versions. This New minor versions are supposed to carry breaking changes like feature additions, removals, and cutting edge features is going to get introduced in this new innovation releases. And the any new innovation release are supposed to officially supported only till the next release of its innovation cycle. And the second release among this is called as LTS release. And LTS release promises stability, and LTS release will be the last release of any innovation cycle. For example, we had innovation releases on 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, and that will end with the long-term support release, which is 8.4, followed by the new release, which is going to happen on 9 series. This LTS version is going to carry the features, bundle the features of all the innovations that is happening in that release. Once the LTS release is released, there won't be any further addition or removal of features in that particular LTS release. But there will be security patches and bug fixes for the next 8 years. This provides a greater stability for the application in production to use the LTS release, since there won't be any disrupting changes in the foreseeing future. But if you want to try your cutting edge features of MySQL, it is you can explore innovation release, but I do not recommend it for production, even though MySQL claims that this innovation release are production grade. Here are the current major versions that we have in MySQL, that is LTS versions. We have 8.2, and the current version of the same is 8.0.39. And the end of life of 8.0 will be on April 2026. When 8.0 reaches the end of life, we are going to get a new LTS release, which is 9.7. And here comes the features list. We are going to discuss on all the interesting features of 8.4 here on. And the first feature among them is ease of upgrades and downgrades. As we all know that MySQL is somewhat upgrade friendly, I would say, because you can able to upgrade in place from a major version to a next major version, and between any minor version in the particular release. For example, 8.2.21 can be upgraded to 8.0.35 directly, so should not be a problem. MySQL carries all the related dictionary changes, but it was not possible to roll back 8.0.35 to 8.0.21 or something, because 8.2 falls under continuous development cycle. It is not possible once it is the data dictionaries are changed to a newer version. It is not possible to roll back to the older version previously. This current version of LTS release 8.4 is going to break that, making it MySQL is equally downgrade friendly. So we are going to look into a quick demonstration on it. I have attached some screenshots of how it will work. Okay, so I have set up a MySQL 8.4, and I replaced the binary of 8.4.0 to 8.4.2 and started the MySQL service. This is what I get to see from the error log. We can see that InnoDB has identified that it is running 8.4.0 and it has to upgrade the server to 8.4.2. Whatever the compatible changes that it has to make, it will going to make that and start the MySQL service. And we can see that MySQL is successfully started and our upgrade is complete. And same thing is going to go for downgrade from 8.4 series. So now we have shut down the MySQL, which is running on 8.4.2, and replace the binaries of 8.4.2 with 8.4.0 and started the service. Again, InnoDB has found that it is running a higher version, it is running a lower version compared to a higher version by that is there in this DB files, then it has started the downgrade process. Once it is completed, now the server is ready for connections. And the second interesting features is the clone plugin improvements, which clone plugin is one of the most used and most interesting features of MySQL 8 to add replicas or a secondary node to a DB cluster. On older versions, clone plugin will work only if the major version, minor version, and patch versions between the source and the destination, which is going to get cloned, matches, right? But this is going to change now. For example, you cannot clone a version running on 8.0.35 from the version 8.4.8.0.34 in the past. In the operation will fail, saying that incompatible. But with 8.4, we will be able to clone different servers with a differing patch versions. For example, we will be able to clone 8.4.2 from the source 8.4.0. So there won't be any issues in cloning. And the only thing is that it has to match the major version and a minor version. The cloning on different minor version or a major version is still not supported. And the third interesting feature is in a group replication cluster, it is always advised to have a same version, but starting from 8.4, this won't be the case. You can, though it is ideal to run same versions on all the clusters, it will be useful during the upgrades and plan for rollbacks and have a rollback plan in case anything goes wrong, right? So in starting from 8.4, you can run with differing patch versions of InnoDB cluster. Your primary can be of one version and secondaries can be of different versions. That doesn't matter. So combined with all these three changes that we discussed, one is that ability to upgrade and downgrade with ease, and ability to clone from one patch version to another patch version, and ability to run multiple servers as a cluster has provided a greater flexibility to MySQL to perform upgrades or downgrades in case of a rollback has to happen, right? So this is a greatest improvement I can say. This will encourage applications to run on always patched version, which is a huge win for security, because I have seen cases where people tend to skip upgrades because that requires a lot of downtime and a lot of planning. With flexibility like this, right, you can able to clone, add, remove varying versions, then upgrades and staying up to date on the patches is going to be ease. Though MySQL 8.0 series claims that it is going to only have bug fixes starting from 8.0.35, these features are being ported onto the 8.0 series as well. Like group replication compatibility is patched on 8.0.35, and some of the clone plugin improvements and downgrades compatibility are patched on 8.0.37. So now we have flexibility available in 8.0 as well as 8.4 series. And the next feature I'm going to talk about is MySQL router. The ability to do transparent read-write split. So InnoDB cluster guarantees high availability for us. Whenever the state changes happens in primary and secondary, if primary nodes goes down, immediately we can have another secondary get elected as a primary. In this events, the application has to be aware where to point the reads and where to point the writes. This is where the router comes in and helps us. Application doesn't need to worry about who is primary or who is secondary. The router will identify and catches it in its metadata and monitors regularly to stay up to date with its view. So previously, we have two listeners from router. One will always point to primary, and the second listener will balance the traffic between the secondaries. Starting from the innovation release to 8.2, they have introduced a new feature called as transparent read-write split. What it does is it listens in a port, it intelligently routes the writes to the primary and distributes the reads among the secondary. Your application need not require to segregate its reads and writes to balance the traffic. So it is going to listen on a separate port. The default ports are given in the picture. So either if you have the application segregated as reads and writes, you can still continue to use the older methods, right? Pointing the write traffic to either 64474 and balance the read traffic to 6446. And if you're having application which don't have a clear segregated read-write routes, you can start using this new transparent read-write split option. This provides us a capability to scale out without changes in the application code. And one of the key features of MySQL router is its connection pool. Even though there are many connections that is going to be spawned from the application, it only intelligently pools the connection in the backend, thereby reducing the load that it takes to create multiple connections and closures. So combining this connection pool and this transparent read-write split will help your application to scale out and distribute your traffic. And the next feature that I'm going to talk about is the auto histogram update for tables. Okay, a quick introduction about histogram. So to talk about histogram, I need to slightly touch upon MySQL optimizer. So when you execute a query, first it goes to optimizer, then it checks the statistics. MySQL has both in-memory and persistent statistics. So it goes and checks the statistics based on certain sampling of pages of all the columns in the table. So histogram is a way to provide statistics of the underlying data, column data, in a bucketized format rather than random sampling. So if we have a column, say for example, a state and a district, you can consider, right? So if that is a column, when you enable histogram, it will intelligently bucketize the distinct values in different buckets and associated data distribution. For example, how many of this table rows contains certain unique values can be bucketized, and this helps optimizer to reduce number of row scans that is required to fetch the data. So in previously, you can able to create histograms on a table, but you have to manually update the histogram whenever there is some huge changes occurs on the table. So which is a painful process, but how the other stats works is whenever there is a huge change happens on the table, there is a persistent stats recalculation is going to happen automatically. MySQL engineers thought if that is going to happen automatically, why not histogram also can be refreshed automatically? So they have provided a provision for it. So when we create it with this new model of auto update, whenever the persistent stats recalculation happens, or you do run an analyze table, the histogram statistics also will be updated. So previously, histogram will be most useful for tables with less inserts or less writes, because the histogram is not periodically updated or not automatically updated. The stats tend to go outdated, right? Now with this addition, histogram can have more profound effects on the performance, because whenever the persistence stats auto recalculation is triggered, your histogram is also updated. And similarly, whenever the file is open, your histogram is updated. So thus easing the histogram management. So here is how you can enable auto update on histogram. The commands to enable histogram is same, just followed by extra uh, two command prompts called as auto update. So for example, you can see from the screenshot I have attached. So I'm just running analyze table test update histogram on column C1 and C2 with 10 buckets. This is the regular command. I'm just adding auto update after that. Now, once I have done it, so I've just marked, note down the timings when I'm doing it on UTC. So it is on midnight, 37th minute, right? So, and I'm going to check the column statistics table where the histograms metadata information is going to get stored. I can able to see the last update that is reflected. Now, I'm going to run a regular analyze table and noting down the time again. So now the time is 0042. Now I'm going to the statistics and checking the same. Now I can see that my histogram is updated. Not only when I'm manually running analyze, whenever there is some recalculation happens, persistent stats recalculation happens, histogram is going to get updated. And the next most interesting feature is tagged GTID. So tagged GTID introduces an ability to add a tag. Tag can be of 8 to 33 character long. This tag can be attached to a GTID like a subset. And we can able to differentiate the transactions from the others. Okay. So this provides a natural way of segregating the writes happening from different sources. And by tagging this, we will be able to skip particular tagged set of GTIDs on replicas. Yes, definitely it can be done by disabling bin logs, but this provides us a procedural way of doing things. And this is more important. This is more useful when you are running an InnoDB cluster or a group replication cluster, because as you know that this group replication on InnoDB cluster, the communication happens via bin log. If you turn off the bin log, there is a possibility to have a data differences within the cluster, which we don't want. Within the cluster, data should be uniform. And if you want your replica to have more or less data depending upon how you need, or skip certain transactions, skip certain tables. Yes, if you want to skip certain tables, you can do it using replication filters. But what to do if you want to skip some transactions? There is no way so far. And this provides us a easier way to procedurally and cleanly handle things. So let's take a test case. We want to maintain 1 month of data on a table prod.tracelog on an InnoDB cluster and retain the data indefinitely over the read replica. So to achieve this, we need to skip only the deletes happening on the table. Okay. And there is no easy way to achieve this traditionally. We tagged GTID. We can tag the deletes as delete tr logs and skip those tags in the replica. Since GTID is idempotent in nature, it will not reapply the same events. So once you mark the tag as applied on the replica, it is not going to apply those deletes. So we are going to fake the fake the replica saying that I have applied the entire range of this tag, then whatever the operation that you are going to perform under the tag won't get replicated. So using this method, we can able to isolate any transaction and can be filtered in replication. So here is a step one. First, let's do some validation. I'm going to get the count of records, which is say 50,000, and I'm gathering the number of records to be purged. So I'm going to retain 1 month data here. So I have to delete 20,000 rows in my system. Okay, let's go and fake the tag on the replica, right? So the syntax to do that is set global GTID first. If you're using a group replication or InnoDB cluster, you can use group name. If you're using a regular replication, you can use source UUID, give the UUID and provide a tag name and give a max range that you can give like a very, very high range randomly. So I have given some 10 to 12 lines, whatever it is. So I have given this, I have the GTA, I have the UUID list given here. I have given the tag name as delete logs. And I have applied it. Once I have applied this GTID first, this slave records that I have already applied this particular set of events. So whenever the same event comes again to the server, it is going to skip that. That is the beauty of the GTID's idempotency. Now, after setting this, I'm going to run the deletes on the production source. How to tag and delete? You have to first set the GTID next equal to automatic and the tag name, then perform the deletes. So I have performed the deletes on the master now. Now, as you can see my screen, now the count is reduced to 30,000. But if you go and check the production replica, it is still 50,000 because the changes received on the changes will be received on the slave, but it will not be applied since we have indefinitely given a long range for this particular tag. So any transaction that is going to happen on this particular tag against this particular tag will be skipped on the replication. So next, another feature introduced in Mysqldump to provide output as in the older versions. So this features looks really interesting, but I'm not finding any particular use case other than you want to do a roll back to a very older version. So say, for example, if you're running in 8.4, the syntax are all changed for replication management. Say, for example, uh, change master is changed to change replication source. Master underscore host is changed to source underscore host. Similarly, so this MySQL dump output as version parameter help us to generate the output with differing MySQL versions. You can able to generate MySQL output which is compatible with versions lesser than 8.0.23 or greater than 8.0.23 or with the current server. This will be useful for like generating output against the older version or providing a compatibility to restore it on a current higher versions data on staging or something to be applied on the production with the lower version. Something sort of that this feature can be used. And this is like one of the new changes that has been brought into MySQL dump. And the next feature I'm going to talk about is the dedicated server option. So dedicated server is introduced in 8.0. So this is introduced to perform certain key configurations of InnoDB automatically, right? So among all the parameters in InnoDB, buffer pool and log file size are the very, very important parameters. If you set it inappropriately or not correctly, you don't going to get performance. So this variable is introduced for that. Starting from 8.4, the scope is reduced further. It is going to only set two variables. One is the buffer pool size, and second one is the redo log capacity. Previously in 8.0 series, there was a flush method option, which is now going to get removed in 8.4. And previously, InnoDB redo log capacity was calculated using memory parameters. Now it is changed to use the CPU parameters. And that has made the computation simple. One of the important and interesting things I like about 8.4 is the defaults, right? So InnoDB 8.4 has better defaults compared to all the MySQL releases I have worked before. So some of the key features I would like to highlight here are change buffering is turned off, InnoDB hash index is turned off. We all know that there are some implications in performance on a highly write intensive system when the AHI is turned on and the change buffering is on. And MySQL, it is good to see that it has been disabled, just like how Cory Cachi has been removed from 8 series, right? And second thing is that InnoDB capacity, IO capacity, right? So yes, we have better hardwares nowadays, right? We have SSDs. So I would see that this is one of the meaningful change that has been made. We have now enough IO capacity that InnoDB can make. No need to tweak it for a regular use case, I would suggest, right? And flush method is now set as O directed if the underlying disk supports, right? Otherwise it's fsync. So the most common optimization parameters are now being brought correctly. That's what I can say here. And log buffer size is increased reasonably. Previously, it was just 16 MB. This is a log buffer size is increased as per the calculation of redo log capacity. And you can see here, and the next important parameters are buffer pool instances. Buffer pool instance has a very interesting feature behind it. There were a lot of blogs about it, claiming that buffer pool instances is degrading performance. It is taking more memory. I think the feedback is heard well here because in 8.0 series, 8 is by default, it will have 8 instances if your buffer pool size is greater than 1 GB. Now, buffer pool instances is again being calculated based on the number of virtual CPUs, so which I feel is very good. So now this defaults, right, as I have explained you in the dedicated server page, as well as here, right? So these defaults are now optimized to compute based on the number of CPUs, rather than just plainly focusing on memory or randomly assigning a number. So which I feel very, very good here. So likewise, this read IO threads, write IO threads, purge threads, everything is being can be automatically configured based on the CPUs that has been assigned. And coming to the better defaults, we can see that group replication parameters is tuned as well. Group replication consistency is changed from eventual to before on primary. Again, which is one of the useful feature if the primary or primary crashes for any reasons. This parameter ensures that backlog is completely applied before the promotion occurs and avoids tail reads. And the exit state of action is set to offline, previously read-only. This is also one of the useful option in group replication. If a node fails and the connection is forcefully disconnected, if the exit action is set to offline. This will avoid stale reads. If the application is directly connected to secondaries, But if you are using router or proxy SQL or any other load balancer which is aware of the cluster health using metadata, this is not going to make any difference because the proxy will automatically handle that, and this mechanism will act as a secondary layer of protection. And there are a lot of application impacting changes also introduced in this release, like new reserve keywords are added like manual, parallel, qualified, table sample, and few of the reserved keywords are removed. Master bind, master SSL, verify cert. These are removed because we have depreciated the word master and slave and replaced it to source and replica. And finally, we have native password disabled by default, and it is recommended to switch to catching SHA-2 password. But if you are some adamant user who wants to use the native password by any how, you can enable that by setting a variable MySQL native password on, which is to have some backward compatibility and time for certain applications and connectors to make the changes. And the next change is that foreign keys, right? In 8.4, it is the foreign key checks are becoming much stricter. So it mandates the parent column of a foreign key to be a unique key or a primary key, right? So this is how it is there in other database technologies. So they are bringing it to MySQL also. Previously, MySQL will be little bit lenient in towards that. There can be any column can be marked as a primary of a foreign key reference column only if it has an index. Now it has to be mandatorily unique. And they've also had a backward compatibility variable called as restrict FK on non-standard key. If you want to still continue with the old behavior, you can turn it off. And I strongly feel this can be one of the breaking change in the application because people are not used to design in that way. So if you want to follow best practices, you have to change your database structures. But if you want to migrate now and take it up stuff later, you have a variable to turn it off. And one of the another interesting changes in application related to application is now the client comments are preserved. So I have seen places where the developers holistically writes comments on all the SPs, right? So that it is more readable. It is easier for others to understand what the SPs or functions are doing. Okay, but when you upload that function or stored procedure in MySQL, these comments will get vanished. Okay, so the one way to enable that in past is you have to start the MySQL client with option -- comments. Otherwise, your comments will be vanished. With this new version, we will have the comments preserved by default. If you are a good developer, then it's a best. It is a boon for you, and you don't have to do anything extra to have your comments preserved. And if you ask me, and it is the best practices to add your comments on UDFs and SPs. And the next, we're going to talk about what are the changes that can impact your monitoring and automation, okay? Which is very useful for those who has configured alerts, those who have various dashboards and stuff, right? It's like, so the one of the most common way to check slave lag will be slave status, right? So now this all are removed from this current release. Though this change has been brought on 8.2, it is not. It was the old commands were only in a depreciated state. It was not completely removed. So starting from 8.4, the words master slave are completely removed and replaced by source and replicas. And this will impact the statements that you used to monitor the health. as well as some of the administrative commands. For example, related to stir server, the most common command will be show master status. So now you have to use show binary log status, and some of the common command that is used can be change master to. Now you have to use change applications shows to, and reset master. You have to use reset binary logs and GTIDs, right? So these are the some of the administrative commands. Hopefully, by practicing for a bit, like you can get used to it, and the next administrative commands can be start slave, stop slave. You have to replace it with start replica, stop replica, and show slave status to be replaced with show replica status, show replicas, reset replica. So there is a complete change in this naming conventions. The older naming conventions are completely removed, and I personally find it difficult when I was using DB deployer, which was still using. I use DB deployer a lot to test a lot of releases, a lot of new features. So there I found it difficult to configure varying topologies and a group replication or regular replication with the newer version 8.4. And MySQL pump was depreciated earlier, and which is now completely removed. And you have to use Mysqldump or shell utilities to uh, take backup of your data. And that's about the features. And we'll quickly touch upon the current state of the cloud support for MySQL 8.4. And yes, it's MySQL developed by Oracle. OCI provides the complete support for all its releases. You can able to have a database as a service or a database as a platform as a service for 8.0 series, 8.4 series, innovation series, which is completely available in Oracle Cloud. If you want to use it, definitely you can go ahead and start testing it on database as a platform service in Oracle Cloud. And if you are a AWS platform, current versions, what we are having is in 5.7 and 8. And 8.4 is now available in database preview. So you want to see how to start it, you have to go to the RDS section and select the database preview, and where you can able to create preview instances, which can be retained up to 60 days and will be automatically deleted after the 60 days retention period. And it is not completely available right now as a GA release. We can expect it soon. It's because it's almost a quarter after its release. We are expecting the new releases GA from AWS very soon because it's already in database preview. And the next major cloud provider is Azure. Azure is yet to announce its own version of 8.4. So which we can expect it. I happen to have connect with Azure team recently, so they are working on 8.4. That's what I heard from them, and this is the community retirement date and Azure support end date um, of the Azure flexible server. As you can see here, we have extended support date for even 5.7, which is up to September 2025, which is a good thing. And I feel that those who are using 5.7 can have some more breathing time till they migrate to a newer version. By the time 8.4 will have its availability in Azure. And next platform is Google Cloud Platform. So Google Cloud has support for 5.6, 5.7, and 8. And 8.4 is not announced yet. And I don't have any information on that, like when it will be announced. And this is about the current state of MySQL 8.4 LTS on varying cloud platforms. And Yeah, let's conclude with some takeaways here. Yeah, MySQL 8.4 LTS is a fully featured, naturally enhanced version of 8.0 series, because 8.0 series is a different versioning series. It had a completely mm, different kind of a life cycle altogether. It was continually evolving with each of its minor releases. Then this new versioning model came in, and it is 8.0 series is something very difficult for DBS to understand which feature is in which release. Maybe it is good to have some quiz also, like when this feature is introduced, which minor version this feature is introduced. It's really, really tough, guys, to be honest. And Ada 4 it's a completely packed release with all the features that we had so far. So I would call it as a natural version, as Oracle calls it. And yes, I explained you various features of MySQL 8.4. It definitely has improved a lot in flexibility in scaling, like adding, removing, cloning, whatnot, right? And has the predictability of the releases, the stability of the releases is getting improved. Predictability in the sense, right? It has adopted a quarterly release model, so we can expect to have a new releases every quarter. And yes, for InnoDB cluster, as I explained you already, we have improved on fault tolerance, consistency, like during failovers. And the the one interesting thing I like about this release is there are many key parameters, many important parameters, which has been taken into account for auto tuning. Um, to remember correctly, when we were working with 5.7 or even the earlier versions of 8, we had a playbook written to auto update or auto tune the parameters based on the instance configurations. Now this initiative has been a welcoming thing for me, and um, there are so many good things, but yes, it's my responsibility to tell you some bad things also. There were some critical issues on the past quarterly release, which was on 8.0.38, 8.4.1, and MySQL 9.0 innovation release on July 2024. That bug made MySQL to crash if it had a more number of tables. So MySQL was quick in action, and they fixed the bug and released the patched version on the same month and made the versions affected unavailable to download. So they are making very good progress and quick bug fixes. And MySQL 8.4, 8.4 series or 8 series or the series where there were too many bug fixes. You can take it positively or vice versa. And given the long-term life cycle of 8.4, I think people will soon look to adopt 8.4, given the stability and flexibility in various areas of MySQL 8.4. And that ends my presentation. And thanks for your time in attending this webinar. And hope you have find this webinar really interesting and useful. And if you have any questions, do let us know. I will be here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinoth Kanna, for that insightful presentation on what is new in MySQL 8.4. So, to summarize, we discussed the major features of MySQL 8.4 LTS, including in-place upgrades and downgrades, clone plugin added enhancements, MySQL router for read-write splitting, auto histogram updates, then changes to Mysqldump, cloud support across various providers, and finally, key takeaways. And if you have any questions or need further clarifications on any topic we covered today, please feel free to reach out to us at info@mydbops.com. And if you are interested in our managed or consulting services, you can also reach us at info@mydbops.com. Stay connected for our upcoming webinars and events where we will continue to share valuable insights on database management and innovations. Once again, thank you for your time and participation. We hope you found the session informative and valuable. Have a great weekend. Thank you.